welcome to my round 7 tips in what I got wrong and what I got right. So let's get into it. Well, for round 7, I actually got 8 out of 9 correct. So a pretty good round for me. Usually I get 5 or 6 correct, 5 or 6 out of 9, but 8 out of 9. So let's go through them. Thursday night we had Melbourne Demons versus Richmond. 83 points to 63 points. I tipped Melbourne Demons to win that game. And they won. They played a pretty good game. It was a close encounter for both teams. They're both playing quite well, and I did expect Richmond to play a bit better because they're not the worst team. They have shown good signs of improvement, and so has the Demons with their wins. So both teams were looking like they're an improved side, and Demons did get the win, and that's very good for their season because we know Melbourne is a better team than where they are on the ladder. Like, they don't really deserve to be at the bottom, near the bottom of the ladder, because they are a good team, but they're just having a bad year. But it's good for them to get that second win on the board. So I got that tip correct. Melbourne Demons over Richmond by 20 points. Then on Friday, we had Friday afternoon, a Collingwood versus Essendon. I tipped Collingwood for this big Anzac Day game. I want to see Essendon beat Collingwood. Of course, I'd love to see that because I like to see any team beat Collingwood. But I'm not game enough to tip against Collingwood in the form that they are in. It's pretty obvious they are one of the best teams in the league, and they probably are the best team from what we've seen. And saying that, though, it was a good game to watch. I'd say Essendon was good for about half the game. They kept it close with Collingwood. It looked like Collingwood was going to get away with it early in the first quarter, but Essendon fought back, and it was very close by half time, by 3/4 time, but Collingwood just had more energy, and Essendon faded out a bit in the end. So that's why Collingwood won 107 to 66 in that game. It's a 41-point win. It was close though, but they got away with it in the end, and Collingwood just showing why they're one of the best teams in the comp. And I got my tip correct because I tipped Collingwood there. Then on that Friday night we had Fremantle versus Adelaide Crows at Optus Stadium. I tipped Fremantle to win, and they won. It was Fremantle 85 to Adelaide Crows 67. This was a disappointing game for Adelaide Crows. I thought they might have played a bit better, but just seemed that things weren't going well for them. And in the game, the Fremantle just are a tough team to beat in their home ground, and Adelaide were just struggling to sort of get some synergy between the players. They having one of those games where you can't link up with your teammates. It was like that for Adelaide. They really just nothing going right for them, and Fremantle were playing the better football, and that's why they got the win. They deserved to win. So good job for Fremantle. Then we had St Kilda versus Brisbane Lions at Marvel Stadium. I tipped the Brisbane Lions and Brisbane won 118-73. I just expected that Brisbane would be too strong for St Kilda because St Kilda are coming off these losses and they're struggling to get high scores. St Kilda seems like a team they try to keep it into as a cagey game. Like they don't want their scores to get too high. They keep it low, and they would rather beat a team. They'd rather beat a team by 10 points. They don't seem like confident to kick 100 points in a game. They'd rather play like this 70 points to 60 points sort of game. So they try to stop their opposition getting a high score, but it hasn't really been working out well for St Kilda so far this year. And Brisbane, they're the reigning champions, so they had too much firepower, just too much ability, and St Kilda couldn't handle that pressure. So I got that tip correct. Port Adelaide 97, North Melbourne 88. I got that tip correct. I tipped Port Adelaide, but I didn't expect it to be that close. North Melbourne did come back into the game, and yeah, they had some chances. They could have possibly won that game, but Port Adelaide, they held on. North did they did play okay, and Nick Larkey, I didn't actually see the full game, but I did see that Nick Larkey, he missed some vital opportunities that could have swung the game in North's favour. So, but I did expect Port Adelaide to win because, let's face it, I think they're the better team overall. They're a finals team, so, and they just had a bad start to the year, Port Adelaide, but this is a win for them, and it's good for their confidence. But I mean, not so good that it's only what was it, 9-point win. I mean, so that's not good for the confidence actually, that they only won by 9 points over North. But a win is a win, so they'll take the 4 points. Anyway, I got my tip correct on that. Then the one tip I got wrong was the Giants versus Western Bulldogs at Manuka Oval in Canberra. I tipped the Giants to win there, and they got it. They didn't win. It was Giants 81, Western Bulldogs 113. I expected it to be actually a quite close game because we've seen some pretty close games between these two teams, and both evenly matched, I would say. So I was really expecting, Western Sydney Giants to win here in a close one, maybe by 6 points or under a goal, something like that. And it was going to the script for most of the game, I'd say. Like, it was halftime, it was heading in that direction. But then, this fourth quarter, Western Bulldogs just turned it on. Bontempelli was playing like a madman. He was doing miraculous things, and Western Bulldogs they're looking so good. I don't know, there's a lot of talk about how Western Bulldogs got all these injuries this year, but when you see Western Bulldogs playing at their best, they really do look like one of the best teams in the competition, and they definitely do look like a finals side, watching them at their absolute best. So they made it fools out of Western Sydney Giants. And that's concerning for the Giants because they're known to be the orange tsunami, but we haven't seen much of this orange tsunami lately. It's like they're a bit dysfunctional, the Giants. They just don't seem to be, scoring like they used to. They used to be like so good at getting these big scores, and they're struggling a bit. So it's a real concern for the Western Sydney Giants, but good for the Bulldogs. And that's the only tip I got wrong out of these 9 tips. I got 8 of them correct, but that's the one I got wrong because I tipped the Giants, and Bulldogs won easily by like 32 points. Next, the Sunday games, we had Gold Coast versus Sydney Swans. Gold Coast 117, Sydney Swans 79. I tipped the Gold Coast. I got it correct. It was a bit shocking when I saw that the score, Sydney Swans were ahead early in the game. They were playing pretty good, and I thought, oh no, I'm going to get this wrong. But I tipped Gold Coast, and they came back, and it was a good thing that they did. I tipped Gold Coast because they're, good at home mainly. They have a good record at their home ground in Carrara on the Gold Coast, and yeah, they usually don't get beaten on their home ground. It's mostly when they're away from home. But I knew it would probably be a test for them because Sydney Swans aren't the weakest team in the competition. They were in the grand final last year, so there's a reason for that. And I remember seeing them play in the preseason. I remember watching them in the preseason, and Sydney won easily. So Gold Coast won, and that's good for them to win that game. Then we had Carlton versus Geelong. I tipped Carlton, and they won because it was Carlton 94, Geelong Cats 76, and that was at the MCG. So it was a big game, and most people, I think they've gone with the Cats on this because they saw Geelong beat Hawthorn the week before, and that's what most people would have tipped, but I had a weird feeling that Carlton might come out and play a good game. And, because Carlton did have 2 wins in a row, and I think they needed that confidence coming into this game. And what we saw was a Geelong, Carlton were, playing really good football. They were playing some of their best football, and yeah, they got the win. It was 3 goals, so it's a good win for Carlton over Geelong, one of the top teams. But saying that, I think that we got to take into consideration that Geelong did have some tough games in the last couple of rounds. I mean, they did get that massive win over Adelaide Crows in Adelaide. Then they played that game against Hawthorn the week before and beat Hawthorn in a big one last week at the MCG. So I think it is a bit of a tough ask to ask Geelong to, play these big games, and you got to win every big game. So they did look a bit tired on the field to me, that they're not playing at their absolute best. And Carlton, yeah, they did look like the better side. They looked like they were putting more pressure, tackling pressure, playing better overall. So I tipped Carlton, and yeah, they won 94-76. In the last game for the round 7, it was Hawthorn versus West Coast Eagles at Marvel Stadium. Hawthorn 124 to West Coast Eagles 74. 50-point win. Yeah, nothing much to say about that. I tipped Hawthorn, obviously, because they are one of the top teams. And West Coast at the bottom, Hawthorn's one of the better teams. And they had a couple of losses over the last couple of weeks. They lost to Port Adelaide, surprisingly, and then they lost to Geelong in that close big game at MCG. And it was under a goal, that one. But so they had two losses in a row, and I think that had shaken Hawthorn a bit, because they went from perhaps thinking they're the best team in the competition to, oh, we can be beaten, because we've been beaten by Port Adelaide and we've been beaten by Geelong. But this game against West Coast, they easily won by 50 points, and I think it's just a confidence boost that Hawthorn needs right now, because I think they would have been shaken for sure with those two losses. So sometimes you just need that easy win to get some confidence back, get another win on the board, and then get ready for your next opposition. So, yeah, that's why I tipped Hawthorn in this game, because it's pretty obvious he was going to win. That's the round 7 tips for round 7 of 2025. I hope to see you in the next video when I do my round 8 tips. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.